My name is Kendrick, your court-appointed lawyer. You wanted to speak to me.
They want me to beg, don't they? To grovel for their leniency, to express remorse for what? For fighting for my people? For believing in a future where we wouldn't be crushed under their heel? No, I will not beg. This statement, which I make freely, understand without coercion, is not about sympathy. It's about the truth. You've heard their version, their sanitized, self-serving broadcasts. They talk of our barbarity, our aggression. They paint us as the villains. But I was there. I led our forces. And I will tell you, here and now, that we were not defeated by their courage nor their strategy. They won because of their inferior science. Yes, you heard me right. Their inferior science. In the beginning, it seemed so clear. We had the superior technology, the more advanced weaponry. Our combined fleets dwarfed theirs, homing torpedoes that could track a target across light years, ball lightning that could incinerate a cruiser in seconds, the Clyden beam, weapons that were the envy of the galaxy, and behind it all, Malvar. Our greatest scientist, with Malvar leading our research organization, victory was not just probable, it was inevitable. Then Malvar had a stroke, they said. Sudden, unexpected. It felt like the very foundation of our power had cracked. A void opened, and into that void stepped Professor General Norden. A brilliant theorist, yes, but a man more comfortable with equations than with the realities of war. I remember that first war council after his appointment. We, the military commanders, were anxious, of course. The war wasn't progressing as quickly as we'd hoped. We needed Malvar's genius, his practical solutions. Can our existing weapons be improved? Grand Admiral Taxaris asked, his voice tight with concern. We all leaned forward, waiting for the reassurance that Malvar always provided. Norden's response was unsettling. Frankly, gentlemen, he said, his voice smooth, almost condescending, I doubt it. Our weapons have reached their peak. There's been no fundamental change in armaments for over a century. We've been polishing the same old tools instead of forging new ones. He paused, letting his words sink in. We need new weapons, he declared, weapons unlike anything seen before. It will take time, but I have redirected our research. I believe a revolution in warfare is at hand. A revolution, he said. We were skeptical. Norden had a way of speaking, a certain bombastic tone that made you question his claims. But we had no choice but to trust him. We were at war, and he held the keys to our technological future. Less than a month later, Norden demonstrated his revolution, the sphere of annihilation. I can still see it in my mind's eye, a shimmering sphere of energy, no bigger than a man's head. He placed a durasteel block within its radius, and it was gone, utterly disintegrated. We were stunned, awestruck. Here was a weapon that could obliterate anything. There is a minor drawback, Norden admitted, almost as an afterthought. The sphere is, well, spherical. It consumes everything within its radius, including the generating device. In other words, it was a one-shot weapon, useless on our ships, only deployable via guided missiles. But we didn't care. We were intoxicated by its power. We ordered a complete overhaul of our fleet, halting all offensives to integrate this wonder weapon. We thought we had time. We were wrong. The conversion was a nightmare. New torpedoes had to be designed, larger ones, which only our capital ships could carry. It was a logistical hell, a race against time we didn't even realize we were running. Then the accident started. A battleship, the pride of Xantus, vanished during a test flight, vanished. We later learned that the ship's own radar could, under certain conditions, prematurely trigger the sphere. A simple fix, Norden assured us, but another month lost. Then, just as we were preparing for a renewed offensive, Norden announced another improvement. He had increased the sphere's radius tenfold. More modifications, more delays. And all the while, the enemy was advancing, emboldened by our absence from the battlefield. They retook Kirain and Floranus, then the fortress of Ramzandran. Losses we brushed off as insignificant at the time. We still had the ultimate weapon, didn't we? When we finally unleashed the spheres, it was anticlimactic. We had fewer than planned, and the enemy, in their primitive way, had simply built more ships, swarms of them. Their losses were staggering, yes, but they overwhelmed our targeting systems. We were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and then, while our main fleets were engaged, they struck at our lightly defended systems. And so came the battle analyzer, another of Norden's brilliant solutions. What does it matter if they have more ships, he argued, if we can make ours twice, thrice as efficient? He spoke of electronic calculators replacing human strategists, of battles analyzed and optimized in real time. It sounded like science fiction, like something out of a children's story. But then, he demonstrated it. We ran simulations, complex battles, and the analyzer performed flawlessly. We were convinced, perhaps too easily. We authorized its installation on 4 of our heaviest ships. And then the real problems began. The analyzer was a beast. 1 million vacuum tubes, a crew of 500 technicians just to keep it running. We had to convert liners just to house the off-duty crew. And the training, we handpicked thousands of our best and brightest, put them through intensive courses, and they broke. 10% had nervous breakdowns, only 40% qualified. The personnel and training commands were furious. Norden, naturally, claimed it wasn't his fault. The research staff cannot be held responsible for the inadequacies of your personnel, I recall him saying, his voice dripping with disdain. We ended up deploying only 2 analyzers, a fraction of what we needed. And then on its first mission, one of the analyzer fleets lost its technician liner to a stray mine. A warship would have shrugged it off, but the liner, with its irreplaceable cargo of specialists, it was obliterated. The entire operation had to be called off. Ariston, Duranus, Carmanidora, Pharanodon, all fell. The recriminations at the next council were bitter. Taxaris, I remember, was particularly scathing. "Thanks to your irresistible weapon, Norden," he snarled, "we are worse off than before. We should have kept building conventional ships." Norden, of course, deflected the blame, but I saw it in his eyes, a flicker of doubt, of fear. The second analyzer fleet had some initial success. The analyzer worked as advertised, outmaneuvering the enemy, inflicting heavy losses. But the enemy, they learned, they saw the strange, unarmed liners accompanying our battleships. They saw what happened when one was destroyed. And in the next engagement, they threw everything they had at our analyzer ship and its consort. They didn't care about losses. They overwhelmed us, destroyed both ships, and with them, our fleet's command center. It was a decapitation. We were forced to disengage, losing all our gains and more. Taxaris, in his despair, resigned, and I was given the dubious honor of supreme command. We were on the defensive, reeling, and Norden, he doubled down. He had one last trick up his sleeve, the exponential field, a device that warped space itself, making a ship virtually unreachable. It was his most audacious creation yet. And it worked. In tests, it worked flawlessly. But the war waits for no one. We went into battle before all the kinks were ironed out, before the crews were fully trained. And in the chaos of combat, the field's fatal flaw revealed itself. It distorted space, yes, but it also distorted us, our ships, our equipment. Minute changes, imperceptible at first, but cumulative. Our ranging equipment went haywire. Our communication systems failed. We couldn't coordinate, couldn't even talk to each other. Each time we used the field, the distortions grew worse. We became ghosts, phantoms, unable to effectively fight. They, with their old weapons, their inferior science, simply waited us out. They swarmed us, overwhelmed us, and we, with all our technological marvels, were helpless. So, here I stand, defeated, imprisoned. And I ask you, after hearing this, after understanding the true cause of our downfall, do you blame me for requesting a different cell? I cannot, I will not spend one more day sharing this space with Professor Norden, the man who, with his relentless pursuit of the ultimate weapon, led us to ruin. I cannot be held responsible for what I might do if forced to endure his presence any longer.